Pollution. Pollution.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's right. These guys are contributing to climate change. But what damage do they actually do?
Livestock and their byproducts account for at least 32,000 million tonnes of carbon dioxide per year, or 51% of all worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. Not to mention the fact that cows produce 150 billion gallons of methane per day, which is 23 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. It doesn't stop there, as emissions for agriculture are projected to increase 80% by 2050. With this in mind, should we even be eating meat and dairy? I wanted answers, so travelled to Peter's office to speak to geologist Caris Bennett, a lady who has also been vegan for nearly 20 years.
Meat production provides about 18% of the calories in our diet, but it uses 83% of the land surface, of the farmland. So it's just really unsustainable, and there's no need for it. You can get all the nutrients you need from eating plant-based foods, and it's much better for your health as well. When you look at the animal agriculture system, the whole process from start to finish actually emits greenhouse gas emissions. The crops that are grown to feed the animals are really important, because animals need about 10 times the amount of food in order to produce the same amount of animal protein. So it's really inefficient. It's more destructive than any technology on Earth. So it's changing our climate, it's polluting our rivers with manure, and it uses huge amounts of land and water.
As well as gas, agriculture uses astonishing amounts of water. This takes into account the water required to grow the grain they eat, the water they drink, as well as general maintenance to produce the end product.
Cows do drink a lot of water. I mean, a cow, especially a cow that's producing milk, she'll drink several gallons of water today. But the reality is that if they're kept outside like this, I mean, they just drink water from the troughs, which for us is from a well. We had not even on mains water. We've got a well up the hill. It's piped out to troughs. So I mean, all they're doing is drinking the water they need to survive.
Fidelity is the vice chairman of environmental organisation Pasture for Life and owns a farm in Kent. She works hard to ensure her meat is packed with nutrition and is the best for the environment.
They're much happier outside, they're grazing the fields, and all the goodness from their urine and dung is going back into the field and helping us rebuild what at the moment is a pretty rubbish field. They're completely grain free. We never feed any grain to our cattle, and there's some really good environmental and human health reasons for doing that. Cattle are amazing animals. They're ruminants. They have the ability to convert grass into protein for humans to eat. They don't need to eat grain, and in fact it takes 7 or 8 kilos of grain to produce just 1 kilo of beef. So we would say 60% of the UK is covered in grass. Let's raise all of our cattle on grass. Something like a third of the world's grain production goes to feeding cattle, when that should go to feeding humans. I mean, it's just a huge waste of resources. If you imagine the carbon footprint that goes into producing a ton of grain, you've got the tractors ploughing it up, you've got the combines coming in, you've got the transport of the grain. The footprint is enormous. So it really doesn't make sense to be feeding that to cattle. And if they're in big, intensive sheds, you've also got all the issues around animal welfare as well.
I was so surprised after speaking to Fidelity. I didn't think it was possible to farm in a way that doesn't dramatically contribute to climate change. Factory farming is the problem. They feed cattle imported grain and aren't part of the carbon cycle. So if the farmers can do it, do we need laws to put this into practice?
When we took evidence for the agriculture bill, there was quite a lot of people from the farming lobby, from the sort of meat and dairy sector, that were complaining that they get all the attention. Why does everyone talk about their carbon footprint and their impact as opposed to other sectors? And I actually think politically it's the other way around.
Kerry McCarthy is an MP and former Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. She is also part of multiple committees that focus on the environment. She explains how unaware some politicians are of the problem.
And I said, well, it's the food that's imported, it's the carbon footprint of that that's the problem. And he said, oh yes, you know, the food miles, the tankers bringing it in. And I was like, no, it's not that I'm talking about. And that's what I go back to saying. I think there's still some way to go before, and we can do it, you know, by encouraging farmers as well that are trying to do the right thing. But it's policy-wise, we're not there yet.
I was stuck. There did not seem like there was any way to stop intensive farming anytime soon. Supermarkets are usually the root of the problem. Their meat is supplied from mega farms to meet the demand at a low cost, but without regard to the planet. Just because meat is branded free range or predominantly grass-fed does not mean it is any better for the environment.
The message needs to be eat less meat and make sure when you do eat meat that it's really environmentally friendly reared. And I don't think you should be either a meat eater or a vegetarian. I like this new thing about being a flexitarian and eating, if you eat meat, choosing where it's come from, making sure it's really well reared and making the most of all those amazing vegetables that we have got.
It seems that the only way to stop or at least slow down factory farming is to change how we as consumers shop for our meat and dairy. Try to buy products at your local butcher's or farmer's market and do this less often in the fight to save our planet.
We have to sort of face the fact that for most people buying food in the supermarket is easily the most easy and efficient way of doing it. How about you?